Old English is a phase of English language that spanned from the 5th to the 12th century. It is historically characterized by its unique linguistic features. This period can be traced back to the arrival of Anglo Saxons in Britain. The arrival of Anglo Saxons is a critical event that helped shape the development of the language. These Anglo Saxons were primarily made up of three tribes: the Jutes, the Saxons, and the Angles, each of whom brought distinct dialects to the island. The term Old English is largely used to describe the language spoken from the 5th century until 1150, when the Norman conquest began to influence the language further. Before the Anglo Saxons arrived, the Celts were the primary inhabitants of Britain. The Celtic language was composed of two main branches, Gaelic and Cymric. When the Anglo Saxons settled in Britain, their language, which was part of the West Germanic branch of the Indo European language family, began to mix with the existing Celtic language and Latin influences from the occupation of Britain. As a result, Old English emerged as a fusion of these influences, and it was used primarily in the southern and eastern parts of England and the southeastern parts of Scotland. The development of Old English is recorded in important historical texts such as the Ecclesiastical History of the English People, written by the Venerable Bede in Latin around 730. This work provides valuable insight into the language of the time. The presence of Latin in Britain during the Romanization did not replace Celtic, but it did influence the language, especially among the upper classes and in urban areas. However, after the Anglo Saxon invasion, the Celtic influence waned as many Celts were pushed westward into areas like Wales and Cornwall where they sought refuge. The name England itself is derived from the Angles, one of the tribes that played a significant role in the Anglo Saxon invasion. The land they settled came to be known as Angla land or England, and the language spoken was referred to as English. Old English was a result of the merging of dialects from the Jutes, Saxons, and Angles, and it was influenced by Latin and Celtic. This fusion led to the development of Old English, which had a distinct pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary compared to modern English. Old English had several key characteristics. Pronunciation was quite different from modern English, and many words from Latin or French were absent. The grammar of Old English was synthetic, meaning that word endings were used to convey meaning, whereas modern English is more analytic, relying on word order. Old English also had grammatical gender, with words classified as masculine, feminine, or neuter based on their form, not biological sex. For instance, Mona, moon, was masculine, Sunne, sun, was feminine, and Sild was neuter. Additionally, the language had a system of declensions for adjectives, which was different from how adjectives were used in modern English. Old English literature is foundational to understanding the history of the English language and its evolution. Some of the most important texts from this period include Beowulf, Caedmon's Hymn, and Seafarer. These texts are significant in their portrayal of English culture and language. King Alfred's translations played a crucial role in making Latin texts accessible to a wider audience, making a pivotal moment in Old English literature. When we look at Old English itself, we can observe a language that is vastly different from modern English. The script, as seen in Beowulf, is difficult to read for contemporary speakers without specific training. The text is written in a script that was common at the time, with words and spellings that are unrecognizable to most people today. The language of Old English is rich with Celtic influences, as absorbed some words from the Celtic language. Examples include places like London, York, and Thames, which have Celtic origins. Other Celtic words that have remained in the language are cumb, meaning a deep valley, or tor, meaning a high rock. Alongside these Celtic influences, Latin played a significant role in shaping Old English. The Latin influence came in two distinct periods, one during the Roman occupation of Britain and another with the arrival of Christianity. The Christianization of Britain in 597 through the mission of St. Augustine led to the introduction of many Latin words, especially those related to religion and learning. Some of the earliest Latin borrowings include words like church, bishop, hymn, and abbot. Those words are still in use in modern English today. The Latin influence also extended to areas like education, with words such as school, master, and Latin entering the language. The period of Old English lasted until around the middle of the 12th century and was marked by significant events such as Anglo Saxon conquest and the Norman conquest, which led to the transition from Old English to Middle English. The dialects of Old English were diverse, with four main dialects: Northumbrian, Kentish, Mercian, and West Saxon. These dialects were spoken in different regions of what is now England and parts of Scotland.